Miami's losing streak continued over the weekend, pushing it to 7 straight losses. What needs to change? And does a revamped starting lineup actually work? We answer that and more in today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat, whether you're tuning in on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day, and today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Jam-packed show for you today to start the week. Erik Spoelstra is experimenting with some new lineups, and I have a big idea to help fix the Heat this season. But first, recording this on a Sunday afternoon. After an 0-2 weekend for the Heat, they have now lost 7 games in a row, and when you hear the team talk, they are clearly desperate to try to figure this thing out and get a win. But I want to get to this quote, David, from Tyler Hero, who was asked about the team's struggles to close out games, and he said, quote, "I think Jimmy was really good at making the right play at the right time, whether it was for him or a teammate. So I think that's just part of mine and Bam's process of continuing to get better," end quote. Bam also talking about how this team is going through obvious growing pains since the trade deadline. I think that's an honest assessment in terms of what Tyler said of the team, but one that might be hard for some Heat fans to hear, David.
Sure. I mean, that makes a lot of sense that they would be frustrated to hear that because, Jimmy basically asked out, and obviously the relationship between the two wouldn't work. And at the same time, while Jimmy had his clear struggles over the regular season, I think Tyler's point about what Jimmy did is a very valid one. And you've said it a number of times. Like, you maybe didn't qualify Jimmy always as a superstar in terms of his regular season play, but you always were ready to admit that he was a gamer, and that's somebody who was willing and able to rise up to the challenge, and he was good enough to do so. Like, there were moments there where he could take over the games and dominate in scoring, get to the line, slow things down if needed, make the right pass, get past an initial defender, find a wide open teammate from three, etc. And that kind of lessened the burden for Bam and Tyler, allowed them to be more of the complementary players that they are rather than the team dominant star. And I think that's kind of where this team is right now, is that you're asking two role players or two complementary players, because role players there are connotations to it. And when you call somebody a role player, it's that they're very limited. They can only do certain things. Well, the inability to take over a game is one that very few players have in the league. Jimmy had it. Bam and Tyler, I don't think have it, and I don't know that they'll get it. Maybe Tyler has the ability from time to time to dominate in terms of ignitability, a favorite word of Erik Spoelstra's, and we've seen that from him on occasion where he can run off 10, 12 straight points and kind of change the course of a game. Bam a little bit less so, given what he does defensively and what he is asked to do offensively, which I think is a little bit beyond what he's capable of. Jimmy had it. He had the ability to take those games over. He could defend at the right level. He could understand passing lanes and make a steal that led to a fast break opportunity and draw a foul. And he was an excellent at drawing fouls, and never complained to refs, something we talked about a number of times. He was always very good at getting the foul call, unlike a James Harden or somebody else. He never had to go into histrionics or throw his head back or anything like that in order to get the foul call. Jimmy just bullied his way past somebody, and he was able to make contact and finish at the rim. Unfortunately, they just don't have that on the roster right now. So it's incredible levels of self-awareness from Tyler, but it's also something that's unfortunate because, well, you're not going to find that in the roster this season. You're not going to find – I don't think Tyler or Bam are going to make that leap necessary to become those types of players if they ever do. And I remain dubious about their ability to do so.
Right. And to your point, there's very few players who can do that. And so that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a failure on Bam or Tyler Hero or this Heat organization, that they just don't happen to be those guys, right? Tyler Hero, 6'4", 6'5", is what he is physically. He's not going to be that guy that gets to the line a whole bunch of times. He's improved. He's never going to be that guy who's like Jimmy Butler or even James Harden. There's not going to be that part of his game. There's not, or that overwhelming physical presence that, makes a defense have to crash the paint every time he gets 2 feet in the paint or whatever it is. And with Bam, I know that fans always want more from Bam Adebayo because he's a max player in these things, but again, you go back to what he was at Kentucky and his first year in Miami where he wasn't getting any playing time. I think it's a borderline miracle that this guy is even scoring 20 points per game. And it's a testament to all the work that he's put in on that side of the ball. But you look at the teams that thrive in the fourth quarter, Cleveland has the best plus minus in the league in the fourth quarter this season. They have Donovan Mitchell. He's one of those guys. Minnesota, number 2 in fourth quarters. In terms of overall plus minus, they have Anthony Edwards. Number 3, Oklahoma City. They have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Number 4, the Indiana Pacers. They have Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam, but mostly Halliburton there, who's an advantage creator in a very meaningful and major way. Or the Orlando Magic. Say what you want about them, and they've even struggled at times even worse than the Heat have this year. But they have a guy like Paolo Banchero, who is a superstar. And Franz Wagner, by the way, who looked like an all-star for 2 months out of the season. Atlanta, number 6. They have Trae Young. You kind of go up and down the list. And the teams that are at the top in terms of the fourth quarter, they have that guy who creates that advantage. And I think that's a huge part of the formula here. And the other part of this is I just don't know what Miami's go-to play is.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. In Cleveland, I know what they're going to do at the end of these games. They're going to get pick and roll between Donovan Mitchell and most likely Evan Mobley. And that's what they're going to run in crunch time. In Minnesota, they're going to isolate Anthony Edwards at the top. They're going to spread the floor, and Anthony Edwards is going to make a decision with the basketball. In Oklahoma City, they're going to put the ball in Shai's hand, and they're going to run a small pick and roll, usually with Lou Dort's guy, and they're going to run that over and over and over again. I know what these teams are going to do, and in Miami, I don't know what their fourth quarter offense is, and it's hard to figure that out. It used to be give the ball to Jimmy Butler and let him make those decisions. You're going to run pick and roll with Jimmy and usually Bam, and they're going to make or Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson spacing the floor, and Jimmy's going to make decisions with the ball. And you go back to Tyler's quote there, I think Jimmy was really good at making the right play at the right time.
Yeah.
And I've always said this about Jimmy Butler. There was obviously things that the Heat wanted more from him in the regular season in terms of his availability, and even when he was playing, could he be more of a regular season superstar and not sort of sandbag all the way for the playoffs and all that kind of stuff. But I think what really makes Jimmy Butler special, and you're seeing this play out right now in Golden State too, is not necessarily what he does, but what he doesn't do. Mm-hmm. He doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't foul. He doesn't turn the ball over. And those things just have this amazing way of cleaning everything up and making it easy for his teammates.
Yeah.
And the Heat don't really have that, especially with all the stuff about getting to the free throw line and all that stuff. That's the thing that he does do. But I think almost as valuable the stuff that he does do is what he didn't do. He's just a clean, efficient basketball player. And you're seeing that prove dividends or pay dividends for Golden State right now, who's winning a ton of games.
Yeah.
And the Heat don't really have that efficient playmaking leading element right now.
Those are great points. I mean, with Jimmy in particular, the fact that he is so efficient in those late game situations. Again, maybe not necessarily in terms of being able to hit that last minute shot. He's not Dame Lillard or Steph Curry, who you can count on to hit those shots, or more often than not, you feel like that's a good option for them to be able to take that shot. We've seen too many step back threes from Jimmy or under duress and don't necessarily aren't good shots from.
But I would even say
like
we've seen Tyler Hero. Tyler Hero has routinely been one of the best fourth quarter scorers in the league,
right?
Playing off of Jimmy Butler.
Exactly, and that's the point. It's playing off of him. It's a very good point. To the prior point, like what is the late game play to run? Like it's Bam setting a screen up top, Tyler hoping
it
that
should
maybe
be the Tyler Hero
Bam.
Bam. It should be the Hero Bam pick and roll, but it's not.
And it is, I think, for the most part. But it's also that's not always going to be the effective shot either, because Tyler needs to be able to create space there. If he can get past that initial defender.
Yeah, when defenses start trapping him up high, I think he's gotten better at that, but that's still an issue, especially against teams with more length. And Bam isn't necessarily that. He's not that isolation guy.
Right, and Bam can't be that pick and pop option. He can't be the guy to space the floor as your screener. It's not going to always work as well with him beyond there, because then
and Hero's gotten better as a passer, but he's not this elite sort of entry pass guy that can get Bam the ball, 6 feet away from the basket and kind of let him work there. It's tough, right? It's something that works in the first 3 quarters, but then when defenses start to scheme against it specifically in the fourth quarter, and they say, okay, well, we're going to trap this every time. We're going to send 2 to the ball. and we're going to make this all difficult, it becomes harder. And that's a very simplistic way of looking at it. But in general, that's sort of, it's the truth. And that's sort of what it comes down to. But I think that's why you've seen this team experiment, try these new things. And that's sort of what the post-trade deadline version of this team has looked like. But what can Erik Spoelstra do to try to get a win? We might have gotten some hints as to what comes next over the weekend. We're going to talk about that next here on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. NBA fans, get ready. They swoosh, you save. Thanks to Dash Pass, every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score a huge deal the next day. It's simple. When any player scores 50 or more in an NBA game during the 24-25 NBA regular season, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order up to $10 off the next day from noon until midnight. Let's say after an epic 50-point performance, you want to celebrate by ordering wings, pizza, or burgers from your favorite spot. Well, you can get it delivered straight to your door. Maybe you need a quick or an easy lunch the next day. Well, with Dash Pass, you get your favorite meals with $0 delivery fees and reduced service fees. Plus, now you save even more with this exclusive NBA offer. So sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save. When a player scores 50 or more in a game, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order the next day, up to $10 off. Just use the promo code NBA50. That's NBA50 from noon to midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders at participating merchants. Must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms to apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. March Madness is here. FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even on who cuts down the nets. It's so easy to get in on the action. The FanDuel app is so simple to use. When you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around. And with tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. So go visit FanDuel.com. That's FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. We'll be right back.
Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Your favorite NBA team is a free daily newsletter. Introducing the Locked On Heat newsletter, one stop for ultimate Heat and league coverage with local analysis and amazing writing from Katie Heindel, Mike Shearer, and Locked On fantasy basketball tips from Josh Lloyd. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. So Spo changed up the starting lineup on Friday and on Saturday night. So on Friday versus the Celtics, he goes with Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Andrew Wiggins, and Bam Adebayo. So he goes a little bit smaller to match up with Boston. On Saturday against the Grizzlies, he goes back to Hero and Robinson in the backcourt with Wiggins, Bam, and Kel'el Ware back in the starting lineup. Jaquez moved back to the bench. So Spo's used three different starting lineups in 3 straight games. And I think we're going to see him continue to experiment with that as they search for the win. But Spo is clearly searching here, David. And I don't know. How do you feel about... I guess this is the only thing to do because he did try to stick with a starting lineup and try to find out an identity, and that didn't work. But I did see the value in, hey, let's just try to be a good version of this, and then hopefully the wins come. But desperate times, desperate measures. I suppose that's where we're at.
You know, I try to remember something that Spoelstra told me once when I asked him about those kind of changes. And to him, it's always been important to kind of stress who you are and make them make adjustments, make your opponent adjust to whatever it is that you do. But the what's required there is that you have to force them to make adjustments. You have to be so good that they have to go, well, we don't have an answer for X, whatever X might be. Right now, Miami doesn't have X. They don't have anything that creates an advantage in their favor. Again, as we just pointed out, it's not Tyler, it's not Bam, it's not Andrew Wiggins, it's not Duncan Robinson. Nothing on this roster is so good or even close to being near a good or elite that it forces an opponent's hand to say, oh, okay, well, we've got to do things differently. So Spo has no choice in this regard. It kind of looks a little pathetic from the outside perspective because it's like, well, man, these guys can't figure it out. And I love the idea of flexibility, but also more importantly, not just because of what Spo said, but the idea of having some kind of stability there so that the players understand what their roles are going to be going into every game and feel comfortable in those roles. And as you said, can continue to improve in those roles. That is more important, I think, than anything else. But it also shows just quite how desperate Erik Spoelstra is. And he doesn't have any answers either. They're trying to win. Despite everybody saying, oh, the tank is on. They're trying to win. Spo's changes to the starting lineup against 2 quality opponents, I think, reflects that. It's like, you know what? I don't know what's going to work. Kristaps Porzingis isn't playing. Sorry, Kel'el, you've got to come off the bench today. Oh, we got to go up against Memphis, and we're going to go against Zach Edey and Jaren Jackson Jr. Guess what, Kel'el? You're back in the starting line to create a little bit of a height advantage in our favor. He's trying to figure something out, but this team just isn't good enough. There are no options right now to help this team win, at least none that have presented themselves so far.
This whole idea of, hey, let's find out our identity, get good at it. Everybody can kind of play to their roles and figure it out and thrive, and we're all going to learn together. Those are first world problems, right?
Yeah.
That's a luxury that the Heat, frankly, don't have. And when we're talking about why would you change your starting lineup on all these things, we got to just talk about goals. Like, what's your goal, right? And I think for a very long time this season, the goal was, well, let's just make sure that Kel'el Ware and Bam Adebayo can play together. I think that was a really big goal of this season, and that might ultimately be the greatest takeaway that we get from this is, hey, Bam at the 4 is probably the right way to go. But right now, the goal is let's just get one freaking win, And so all that other stuff about, hey, let's figure out what roles we're good at and all, that's all kumbaya stuff that they don't have the luxury to even think about. Right now, it's we got to go get a win. We got to get off the schneid right now because this is depressing and it's demoralizing and it sucks and nobody likes it.
To use an analogy that's kind of omnipresent on people's minds right now, before you can start arguing hotly over getting fluoride out of your drinking water that's available to everybody, let's try to get the feces that's out of our drinking water. And that's what basically Miami's roster is right now. They don't have drinking water. They can't argue about fluoride. That's a luxury they don't have right now. They got to be able to at least be able to separate sewer from drinking water. That's where they're at right now.
So I don't know what happens next. They play the Knicks Monday night. We're recording this obviously on Sunday.
No Jalen Brunson, luckily.
No Jalen Brunson. He's going to be out for another week or two. So probably no need for Davion Mitchell, right? In that game. Point. At least not. No need to start Davion Mitchell. You're right. So there's obviously need to bring him off the bench. So maybe, there's been a constant here. It's been Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson in that starting lineup. Clearly, Spo is saying we need something in terms of three-point shooting there. And I guess we'll just figure out the other two spots. We know, one of those spots will obviously be Bam. And then if it's against a bigger team, I guess we'll go with Kel'el. And if not, maybe these are the two lineups that he toggles between. And then if there is an on-ball threat, then maybe Davion Mitchell gets back in.
Except the problem is Duncan Robinson has scored 6 total points in 2 games as a starter. Yeah. And that's not good. So Duncan is not thriving in that role as he once did earlier this season. Even earlier this season as a starter, he was so effective that we were calling for him to continue to start, and that hasn't worked. I would imagine no Kel'el Ware against the Knicks because you've got Karl Anthony Towns there, and that's a good matchup for Bam to face. No need to put Ware out there. So I would imagine Mitchell and Ware both come off the bench, and they'll probably go smaller with Jaquez again back in the starting lineup to try and create a little bit of an opportunity. So Bam, Wiggins, Jaquez, Duncan, and Tyler.
That's what I think too.
We'll see. Yeah.
We saw Golden State beat the Knicks on Saturday night going small. They took Quentin Post out of their starting lineup, and they just had a wing guard, Karl Anthony Towns. At this point, I think Towns has gotten a lot better as a driver and more of a physical presence in the paint, but you're also not worried about it. Yeah. Like if Towns is going to beat you, you could usually, defend that kind of stuff. And then Draymond obviously would get that assignment at times, and Bam could do that too for Miami. Yeah. But you kind of want to match up with the wings. They try to spread the floor and stuff like that in New York.
Yeah, I don't necessarily prefer Ware picking up, Towns on those kind of switches or anything like that either. Bam is much more equipped. I would actually prefer either Wiggins or Jaquez being able to pick him up just because they could use certain physicality, get a little low, maybe strip the ball. He's going to get his shot off over anybody because he's that skilled and big enough, obviously. But I think he did a really good job of using his physicality against Ware, if I recall correctly, in their last matchup.
Yes.
And it was a battle that he won pretty clearly. So, yeah, I don't think there's any.
And then who do they have play off of Josh Hart? Because this has been a sneaky thing happening in the NBA. Like, it is Russell Westbrookian levels of disrespect now from three-point range from Josh Hart. So maybe you have Wiggins as that free safety. Whoever they think, maybe we've seen Spo use Jaime as a free safety at times too, because Jaime does struggle a little bit in terms of one-on-one defense. Put him in that free safety, he can kind of use his instincts to get steals and maybe create buckets in transition. So I could see something like that happening too. We're talking strategy here still on Locked On Heat. You can't tell us we don't care about the games. This stuff does matter, and I think it's starting to matter even more as this team desperately searches to try to get a win. It'd be a lot of fun to get a win in Madison Square Garden at this point. Yeah. That would be a nice place to do it and maybe kind of boost the morale there. But I do have an idea of how to fix the Heat. I'm not talking about the offseason. I'm talking about fixing the Heat right now. How can this team find more joy, which is something that Erik Spoelstra brought up over the weekend. How can they get a win here? Maybe string together some good basketball. How can they change their identity? I have an idea to try to fix the Heat next. We're going to talk about it.
Looks like Spro's been listening to the show. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out or picking up stuff online or maybe even spending some money on entertainment, St. Patty's weekend might have flushed your wallet out. Well, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Well, now I budget smarter and I save more. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts. You can set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. We'll be right back.
Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. The best way to support the show, like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app. I want to start with some stats before I get to my big idea here, David. Here's where the Heat stand since the trade deadline in 3 key stats. All right, they're 28th in free throw attempt rate.
Yep.
They are 12th in 3-point attempt rate. And they're playing at the second slowest pace in the NBA. You mentioned something earlier. This team doesn't do anything at an elite level. There you go. They don't do anything at an elite level. They're not even elite defensively. Like, they don't do anything at an elite level. So here's my fix. Here's my big grand idea. You're 28th in free throw attempt rate. You're not going to fix that. Not with this roster. Okay. You're 12th in 3-point attempt rate. That's not terrible. It's right in the middle of the league. It's not elite. You look across this roster, I think there's some really good 3-point shooters on this roster, especially with Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson. And if you're going to go forward with this as your starting lineup, I know to your point, Duncan has struggled. He's still an elite 3-point shooter. You know, he'll have a 20-point game this week at some point. That's just sort of the way he goes. But you're also playing at the second slowest pace. That made sense when you had a guy who was an elite decision maker with the ball in his hands like Jimmy Butler. But you don't have that guy anymore. You don't want to slow the game down. I think if anything, you want to push the pace, increase like sort of the variance part of this thing, get your 3-point attempt rate up, and try to win games that way. So my big fix, play fast, let it fly. That's it. Play fast, let it fly. I want to see 12 3-point attempts per game from Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson. I want them combining for 24 3-point attempts per game. Those two. And then I want Bam shooting 3 to 5 3-point attempts per game. I want Ware shooting them. I want everybody letting it fly. I want Wiggins shooting them. I want everybody to let it fly. Because to me, that's the only way that the Heat can game this thing up, is go full March Madness style, push the pace, try to win the 3-point battle. I know it's not ethical hoops, right, to use the terminology these days. And it's been used by different teams to various degrees, right? Boston obviously is soaring with all this 3-point stuff, and you see Charlotte trying to do it, and they stink. But I think the Heat can kind of get somewhere in the middle with that. And to me, I'm just trying to think, what's the one thing that the Heat can do to help, again, just sort of flip the variance here and literally increase their odds of getting wins here. And it's, hey, maybe there's a night where we just go bananas from 3-point range. I think back to the first round of the playoffs last year, that one win that they got against the Celtics, they let it fly. And they let it fly in a way that was completely uncharacteristic and honestly jarring to watch, but also a lot of fun. And that brings me to my second point. This is a team that is struggling to find joy. Play in a way that is fun. We've talked about the fact that this team is like celebrating Pelle Larsson for diving for a loose ball. It's like that hustle stuff is clearly not happening, and there's no joy in doing that right now. It's been hard work, and I don't know that you can convince this team to work harder at this stage in the season in what is clearly a lost season. But every NBA player likes to play fast. They all do, for the most part. And I think this roster would. So I don't know. I'm kind of at the point now where, hey, you've done it before for one game samples. play fast, let it fly. You increase the literal odds of you kind of stealing a win because of the 3-point variance, but you're also increasing the joy. I think that would be a lot of fun for this team to play that way.
Send Ware and Bam down low, pull down those rebounds, create an advantage that way, kick out for extra opportunities, 3 shooters on the perimeter.
Yeah, have Kevin Love just run like a Cabernet-infused outlet passing session. Like, I just have fun with it.
Something. I mean, fun. Fun is very, very hard for this team to come by nowadays. But I think it's a good point. I look, they're 16th best, right, in 3-point rate. So they're not obviously hitting at the rate that they have in years past. So it's unfortunate. They're not quite the shooting team that they once were. Clearly,
one more stat on that, because I'm glad you brought that up. In the fourth quarter, it's even worse. They're 29th in 3-point shooting percentage since January 1st. They're making less than 29% of their threes in fourth quarters. Their opponents are making 36.5% on threes, which is right about league average, slightly above league average. So that's been a huge disparity too. Sometimes I think maybe we're overcomplicating these fourth quarter issues, and maybe it just boils down to make or miss stuff. And it's just crazy that you would just continue to flip tails for 3 months in a row. But it kind of feels like that's what's happening when you look just at these stats.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I see your point, and it makes some sense to try and add something differently to this team. But I just think also Spo is so hardwired he loves those games where they're in the mud. We've heard that phrase, I don't know how many dozens of times. He loves those games that are clutch situations and, barely winning by 2 points and 93 to 91. It's like, yeah, but you're not winning those games. Are we sure he loves these games?
Are we sure he loves those games? Or does he just say he loves those games? You know what he also says? My boss will love those games. Like
maybe you're right. Maybe you're right.
Is this the same coach who in the Big Three instituted pace and space, and when he has the talent, I think he would love to win games 110
he was playing
to
the
90.
Jimmy style.
Yeah,
he was playing the Jimmy style. Maybe that's what it was. It was that kind of an adjustment there. So yeah, maybe you're right. I hadn't considered that, but I mean, and I think it would help Tyler too, as long as he gets better shot selection. I just don't want any more one-legged, pull-up shots like that, because they're just not falling at the rate that they need them to. And this is not all on Tyler, obviously. This is a whole roster-wide problem. But as far as Tyler, if he's going to be having these kinds of opportunities, I don't know. Playing with pace would help him, I think, to get more open looks, but tweak the selection just a little bit to help out the team. And I think it could work. It could at least spark something.
I think it would help Bam playing in pace. How often do we talk about this? When he rips a rebound, defensive rebound, and just pushes it up the floor, he thrives in those situations. Pelle Larsson thrives in these situations. Andrew Wiggins, as seen in Golden State, plays really well up tempo when he's getting downhill, and he's even going against 2 defenders, but he's got the speed advantage there. That works with him. This is a roster. Jimmy Butler was the only one who wanted to play slow, and when he's a leader of the team, you play slow, and it did work sometimes, and sometimes it didn't work. Like, let's not act like this team was in the play-in tournament for 2 years in a row during the regular season. So, but this roster now doesn't have anybody who thrives playing slow. Even Kel'el Ware, getting him in the open court for some open lobs. We've talked about how hard it is for this team to run a simple pick and roll. It becomes a lot easier. Davion Mitchell loves to play full court. Let him press full court and get out and run. I would be my only message if I'm Erik Spoelstra right now is I want to increase our possessions. Let's go 6 seconds or less. Put a timer on we'll do a self-imposed timer on our shot clock. I get something up in the first 10 seconds every possession.
Bring Mikey Antoni in as assistant head coach.
Yes. Yeah, just like an impromptu seminar. Just bring D'Antoni in just as hey, tell us about the 6 seconds or less. Just play the YouTube films from the Amari Stoudemire, Steve Nash Suns teams. Just put them on YouTube and be like, hey, let's just do this, guys. Be like, let's just try it. Let's just try it for one night and see what happens.
I'd love a one-day coaching session with D'Antoni and that West Virginia drawl and all shucks vibe of his. And he's like, go in there, go press that. You gotta go, you gotta fly. Let it fly. That would be awesome.
That's a good D'Antoni.
I would just love to see that happen because I don't know. I think it would be.
He's a coaching advisor for the New Orleans Pelicans right now.
They're not doing anything. They advise them how to suck more.
Just rent them for a day.
Pay his 1 week salary to come down to South Florida. Oh man. Yeah,
That's my
let's
fix.
do it. Yeah. Okay. I'm all in. I'm all in. The Dan Antonio edition, everything, all of it. It works. It's beautiful.
Yes.
No notes.
Let it fly. Play fast. Let's do it. Heat, Knicks, Monday night. We'll be back with our post-game reactions. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app. Give me one more D'Antoni.
Y'all got to let it fly. Come on. Let's let it fly.